afternoon, grade 12s. Welcome to our third telematics session. And good afternoon to my co-host, Ross Mileham.
Hi, Amanda. It's nice to be back. Hello, learners. This is our third session on team performance, assessment, and conflict management. This is where we're going to start learning to play nicely with each other. So I think, Amanda, we've got some information for the learners about the telematics competition to begin with. So Amanda's just bringing that up. It's about the competition, I think, that has been extended to the 25th of April 2015. So that's going onto Facebook and then liking it and then posting your story. All right. Okay, so learners, take note of that. And Amanda, I think let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to do as like I normally do. I think most of you learners who have been with us before know that I like giving you a bit of a roadmap on where we're going and what we're going to be doing. So let's start with our overview. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so what are we going to be doing? Our team dynamics. We're going to have a couple of different theories. Now, I'm sure you've seen in business, there's always theories. And the reason we want you to know about this is it gets used in real life. So when you come across it, it's not new to you. It's something that you have heard of before and how it kind of helps you as a business function. So we're going to talk about Bulbin, we're going to talk about JUNGIAN, and then management team roles, Mergus and McCain, and what group consensus is. We're going to spend a bit of time on management team roles and Mergus and McCain, just the differences there because they are very similar. And then we're going to move on to conflict. What is conflict? The steps in maybe resolving conflict in the workplace and strategies you could use when dealing with difficult people, as in a team and also clients and management. We also got steps in team development. I hope some of you remember that from grade 11, forming, norming, storming. And then very importantly, we're going to spend some time on grievance procedure. What do you do in a company when you're not happy? How do you approach that scenario? And then I've also added in just the simple steps so that we can go over it. All right, so let's carry on. Our next slide. Amanda, if you don't mind.
Yes, we're looking at criteria for successful team performance. But just before we start, I would have to just take a minute and say welcome to Peakview Secondary. It's Kristen, Nadine, Rushana, Sange, Zile, and Yasin. And I also see we have Halapak. Hi. Thank you. And Ross, here's already a question for you. Team performance can be an essay at exam.
I think we have seen quite a few essays of team performance, but they're throwing quite a few different elements what we're going to be going over. So they will ask you to talk about the stages of team forming, and then they'll ask you about Bulbin and explain that in depth or compare it to another one of the different theories. So you've got to be prepared for something like that. All right. Okay, so
let's start.
Yeah.
Our criteria for successful team performance. The first category we're looking at is your interpersonal behavior and attitudes. Now, for any team to perform grade 12s, there must be a clear unity of purpose. We just say there must be a common vision, a common goal. And every team member must be committed to the team goals. They must be aware of the team goals. They must also believe the team goals to be meaningful and even achievable. And each member must carry out the task efficiently, effectively, willingly, so that we can reach our team goals that we have. But the bottom line here with interpersonal behavior is there must be a common vision. Everybody must have the same goalpost at the end of the day. Ross?
Okay, so now when we're talking shared values, when you want a successful team, you really can't be working against each other. This is where you must be working with each other. So shared values of working together to get one thing done and knowing what that is done. Just like Amanda said, you've got to know what the goalpost is, but you've also got to be working towards the same goalpost. Everyone must be listened to, and every idea must be considered. Remember, everyone in a team is important. Okay, everyone is important. We need to listen to them. We need to make them feel valued, and everyone can contribute if we allow them to. Okay, so they shared values, share each other's vision, and then move towards it. Okay, so communication, clear communication is our next point when it comes to a successful team performance. So Amanda?
The atmosphere must be informal, comfortable, relaxed. The more relaxed you are, the more you're going to feel that you can express your opinion. And sometimes we often have the dominant people in the group. They tend to dominate and takes leadership. But you also need the quiet people in the group. You also need to hear where they're coming from. So that forum must be created that everybody's opinion is important and that everybody can, express themselves. And if there's disagreements, which is normal, because we all don't see things similarly, the reasons for conflict must be examined and communicated to everybody else. Just hold on, I see here's a comment that says the slides are very unclear. We can hardly see anything.
I think this slide is very jumbled with the words.
Okay, I think it's just a little bit small. We will take that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, now the next one, I hope this one's easier to read. Okay, this is one of my favorite points that you should know from grade 11 and you need to make sure you're very familiar with. Just the different stages of team development. Okay, so now if you actually think about it, when you start in a new team, when you start at a new school, new class, these 4 steps generally take place. We either start with our forming, that's where you get to know each other, coming together, and then you start going through a bit of a storming stage. This is when you're actually really honest with each other. What you don't like, what you do like, where the boundaries are. And they call this storming because there's a lot of conflict. Now, a lot of learners say that conflict's not a good thing. It actually is a very good thing. It helps people learn where is my position in the group, what are the boundaries, what is the truth. Okay, so after you got your forming, storming, then you go a little bit norming. What is the norm? What is the way that the group is supposed to function? Okay, so what are the rules almost? Once you've got through all those 3 stages, you can finally start performing. Let's start actually getting those A's. Let's start winning those games. So I encourage you learners, actually look at next time you start something new and you've got a group of people, you'll actually see these 4 stages happen. Forming, storming, norming, then performing. Okay, now this is used very, like I said earlier, they like to use this in essays, mention the stages of team development and how they progress. Okay, so just remember that when we talk about essays later on. So forming, storming, norming, performing. Okay, so 4 very crucial stages of team development. Each team must go through this to actually reach their peak.
And I like the graphic that you used here, Ross, because it means grade 12, when it comes to the body of your essay, there is nothing stopping you from having an illustration like this. Just remember, we need to explain it afterwards in full sentence, exactly as it's done here. But for some learners that are visual, it is just easier to learn the stages of team development by drawing a circle. Having your 4 quadrants and naming it forming, storming, norming, and performing, and then going on to discuss it. Because often there's the impression that you can't do that. But you can. Just remember, when you explain it, it needs to be full sentences as well.
Exactly. Okay, so now, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to go through each one of these theories. If you have the notes in front of you, just make a little note. Management team role and Mergerson-McCain are very similar. Okay, often I've seen a couple of questions where they ask you to compare the two and what are the differences. That's a very nasty question, but you should be prepared for it if you just go over your work. So Bulben is our first one, then JUNGIAN, then management team role, then Mergerson-McCain, and then group consensus. 5 different theories we're going to do today. Okay, so now Bulben's role theory develops on a few different levels. I've divided it for you. If you look closely, there's the thinking people, that's the intellectuals. Those are the people that you can almost say the book people. We have the action-orientated, they're the ones getting things done. And then we have the people's people, the ones that are good with talking to each other. They're the social people. If you think thinking, a person who's always reading is not as good at socializing as someone who's always on Twitter, for instance. So that's where you should start thinking about it. People are different. That's okay. But you need to now have the right balance between thinking action, and people orientated in your group. That's the whole basis of this theory. What is that role that each of your groups must have, and also what's that balance? Because if you think about it, and you really think about it, if we just had people all about action, how factual would our work be? If we just had people that were just about socializing, would we ever get anything done? So that's why we need to have a constant balance of thinking, action, and people. Okay, so now in our thinking group, we have our plant. That is the person who's generally responsible for planting the seed for a creative idea. They're very creative, and they lack generally social skills. We have our monitor. He's the person, or she's the person that just monitors the progress, is constantly feeding back and saying, where are we? We need to get here, etc. We have our specialist, who's, if you think about it, is like the scientist. It's someone who knows very specific information, who we need specific skills from. Okay, so those are three thinking roles: our plant, our monitor, our specialist. The action roles, now this is the action movie stage of thing. These people are all about moving, these people are all about doing. The shaper is constantly trying to take the idea, shape it into something doable. The implementer, as long a word as it is all about actually doing what needs to be done, implementing the idea. What do we need to do to make this real? That's what they're always asking themselves. And as silly as it sounds, there needs to be someone who's about finishing, because you as learners all know it's easy to start a project, but it's not always easy to finish it. So you need someone who's going to be there at the end to push you through and go, right, okay, we need to finish this project. How do we finish it? Let's go, let's go, let's go. Okay, all action-orientated roles. Okay, so that's thinking, action, and now we're going to move over to the people. Now, if you've got a group like this, and I know there's 9 different roles, but not necessarily saying 9 different people, but they need to have sort of those characteristics. Now, the people, they're about coordinating. You think about the organizer in your group at school, the one who's always on the committee for matric farewell, who's always on the committee for fundraising. That's a coordinator. Okay, they're very good at talking to people and getting people to do what they need to get done. Same thing with a team worker. Your implementer and team worker can be the same person, but they're both roles that need to be fulfilled. And lastly, the resource investigator. Okay, this is very much a side role. Someone needs to be responsible. What do we have? What do we need in order to get the job done? Okay, so if you look very carefully, each of these roles are about starting an idea, developing an idea, and eventually finishing an idea, making it real. Okay, so Bulbin was thinking, hey, how do I get paper to eventually product? So here's all your roles that should be fulfilled in your team. And you as learners are thinking, but what do I need? Why do I need this? When you're deciding how you put your team together, you look at this and you go, right, do I have a plant? Am I missing a plant? Is that why no one's coming up with ideas? That's why we give it to you. It's just a framework so you know, okay, this is how I can develop a team one day. Right. So I hope that helps you. 9 roles, 3 different categories. You need to learn them and need to know them.
Ross, which role would you put yourself in if you look at the Bulbin role theory?
Depending on what time of the day. In the morning, I'm definitely thinking a lot more than doing. So it depends if I had my coffee or not. So generally, I'd say I'm more of a coordinator, monitor, depending. All right. Amanda, I would like to know where you'd fit in.
I was going to say exactly the same, I like to, in the teams that I'm normally involved with, I'll be the one always monitoring and saying, how far are we? Guys, are we meeting our deadlines, what need to be done? But also the one, encouraging everybody, seeing that just everybody, coordinating everybody, motivating them, just seeing that everyone is on par. But it's absolutely very interesting.
Good. All right.
Oh.
Here we go, Amanda.
This is the
JUNGIAN.
The JUNGIAN theory. Grade 12's interested enough, myself and Ross was talking about it because I said it's the JUNGIAN theory. He says it's the JUNGIAN theory. However we pronounce it, that's how it gets implemented. We have 4 basic quadrants over here, 4 things we're going to look at. Number 1, we're going to look at extrovert, introvert. The second one is going to be sensing or intuition. The The third one is thinking or feeling. And the last one is judging and perceiving. We at work just had our staff development, and they actually did the Biggs-Myers test on us to determine who on the staff is what. So this is like a very, very interesting one. The first one, you extrovert, introvert. You're either extrovert, that's someone that's very outgoing, relates easy to people, very sociable. Then you get that introvert, those people that normally are more quiet. But do not mistake that quiet people are not as busy thinking about what is happening, and they're the people that observe more, I believe. The second one, your sensing, intuition. The person in the first category, which is a sensor, they look at your normal 5 senses, like what do they see, what do they hear, what's happening around them. Where the person that follows the intuition, is normally that 6th sense. They don't have to, they look much deeper into what is happening. And normally your people that is with intuition are normally your feelers in the 3rd category. Because the thinking people are those people that just follow logic. I need to see what's happening, I need to follow what's happening, and it makes logical conclusion for me. But your people that follow their 6th sense, they normally look at the inner feeling that they have. And then the 4th category is going to be your judging, your perceiving. Now your judges are people that once again look at the external environment and see what's happening. Your perceiving people are those that look at the internal environment, their feelings and that. I need to tell you, Ross, when we did the Biggs-Myers test, that I'm a extrovert, sensing, thinking, judging, which is ESCTJ. And what we did when we went on our staff development, we actually got all the extroverts one side, all the introverts, all those, because actually when it comes to brainstorming, all the extroverts work well together. All the introverts work well together, and it was amazing to just see the dynamics. And
that's what's so important about this JUNGIAN theory, is that a lot of management actually use it to try and figure out what is their team made out of, how should they approach their team. That's why they tend to give it to you. They want to see, okay, is a lot of my team extrovert? Are they introvert? How do they process information? They want to know this, then they know how to give you the information.
No, absolutely. And what was very interesting at the end of the day, each group had to come up with proposals. And it was amazing that the proposals that the extroverts came up was so different to the proposals that the introverts came up, because the introverts saw things from a completely different perspective. Yeah. And I was amazed at how in tune they're probably more in tune with things than the extroverts.
They're very comfortable amongst other introverts, that's why.
Amazing.
Okay, so now that we've done the JUNGIAN theory, you now identify what type of person is. Now, management team role, again, just like Bilbin, assigns roles. What do we need in a team to get something done? Now, learners, I'm not going to give you any long story. You have to know the different roles. They may be similar, but you're going to have to learn them for each different theory and what is in each one. So in our first one, in management team role, we have coaches. Okay, so the positive team atmosphere. Think about your coach at soccer, at rugby, at cricket. They're always about how can we make this very positive. Okay, we have the role crusaders. Okay, I know you guys are thinking rugby, but they're all about focus. Keeping to the idea, like Amanda mentioned earlier, the goalposts. Where are the goalposts? There they are. That's where we need to go. We have our explorers. They're all about new ideas. We have our innovators, new perspectives. They're not someone who's stuck in routine. They want to get you out of your comfort zone. How can we look at this differently? We have our sculptors, just like our shapers. They're all about getting the team to work, making sure that we're in a direction. We have our curators, all about a clearer picture. I think most of you, when you sat in a group at some stage, have had that sort of time when everything is so confusing. A curator is someone who's going to come in, right guys, this is what we've done, this is what we need to do, step by step. Make it clear for you. You probably know someone like that, and they are definitely a curator. Okay, then we have Our next one is our conductors. Logical organization. Think about a train. There's someone conducting the train. Someone needs to now direct that big train in a direction. What speed are we going at? Are we going in the right direction? So that is a conductor. And then the last one is our scientist. I think that's very similar to our specialist. They're very much about information. I wrote down here demonstrators. They're the ones with factual information and skills. Engineers, accountants, scientists, those factual, knowledgeable team members. So now if you think about it, in your group, you can notice your different friends will fall into some of these roles. There will be someone who's very positive, is always encouraging you. That's how you need to start learning these theories. Take a group, your group of friends, and go, right, okay, who in my group is the crusader? Who in my group is the coach? Because then when the exam comes around, you don't have to remember too long. You just remember, oh, you know, Kyle, oh, that guy's the crusader. And then it starts making connections. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Use your friends, use your group. That's where these theories all started. Someone sat in a group and they were going, what makes a good group? And that's what you're doing. You're just identifying that again. Great. Okay, so that's a management team role. Now you're going to notice a lot of similarities if we move over to, we'll go when we get to Mergus and McCain. All right, Amanda, if you don't mind taking group consensus.
Okay, just before we do that, Russ, we have a few messages over here. Firstly, we have Allo Secondary student in. Welcome, Allo Secondary. We also have Thembekile of Sonjongo High School. And he has a question for you, Ross. He says, how does perspective work to introvert based to teamwork? How does perspective work to introvert based to teamwork?
I don't think I'm understanding that question fully.
I think he's basically asking, what's the role that introverts play in a team, considering that they're probably so withdrawn and quiet?
Oh, okay. Well, look, in terms of when a manager is looking at a team, often a lot of you are thinking, I'm introverted, I'm not very sociable. We all have our place in the workplace, and you often find a manager might not want, for instance, let's take an accountant. Now, an accountant, they want to be introverted. They want them to keep to themselves, work. You do not really want an extrovert. You don't want someone walking around the office always talking if you need a lot of factual work done. So an introvert, perfect role. Okay, let's test a whole bunch of accountants. I like an introverted accountant. That's who I'm going to lean towards and on hiring. Now, but you go into marketing, you want an extrovert. You want someone who's bubbly, you want whose energy is outside. So there you lean towards an extrovert. So, and a lot of theories also say that all of us are introvert and extrovert. It's just which side you tend to lean towards. So all of us have our place, all of us have our role. So it's not that introverts are excluded, to say. All right. I hope that answers your question.
Here's a very interesting comment. It says, we usually are behind on business studies, but this time around, you are behind. Well, grade 12s, you need to realize that, although we have the CAPS document and everybody is working on the same work week by week, it is, when we work out the telematics, we more or less judge where the school needs to be on the curriculum plan at that moment, or your annual teaching plan. And we also look what telematics models we did in the past. So we're trying for 2015 not to repeat the models that was done previously, because the previous models that we did on legislation and the other topics, they're all available at your school. Your teacher should have it. If your teacher don't have it, she can get it at the district office. They can download it for her. They can also get it on YouTube as well. But for many schools in this quarter, we will be busy with conflict management. We will be busy with team building, and this is definitely going to come into your mid-year exams. So if you're ahead of us, regard it as revision. Let's do group consensus. Group consensus is that the majority of the people in the group must reach consensus or reach agreement to what we want to do. It doesn't, however, mean that everyone in the group will reach consensus about a particular point. So number one, When the group comes together, we're going to discuss, identify and define the problem. Exactly what do we want to achieve? If it is, guys, we need to improve ourselves. We need a new product for product development. Maybe we should do market development. Depending on what the concept is, we will define the problem. And then the second step is brainstorm. You know, we will randomly brainstorm the idea. Everybody comes up with an idea. We also welcome to look at other creative methods here as well. I mean, a good one to do is the nominal technique. Then we're going to discuss the proposals and make changes and set priorities. After we brainstorm, we're probably going to come up with 10 good ideas or 10 possible ideas. From there, we shortlist them and then we discuss the pros and the cons of each one of them. Maybe we look at doing a force field around each proposal that comes through. Now we look at those proposals that was most popular. And now we test for consensus. We're just trying to get the feel of the group. What does everybody feel like? For example, in the group that I'm involved with, which is a support group, we just decided now that we needed a fundraiser. So we brainstormed the idea and said, guys, we need to do a fundraiser. What do you feel? Some people said, let's have a breakfast. Let's have a dinner. Let's have a jazz evening. Let's have a car wash or whatever the idea is. So now when we discuss the proposals, you see which one will be the best option. In our case, you know, we chose a breakfast because we thought it will just be easier to manage than a full-on 3-course meal at a dinner. So you get the group to make a decision and plan its actions once consensus is reached. Like once we agree that we will do a breakfast, everybody now, we will see what actions everybody needs to do. Who will do the tickets? Who will do the managing of the selling of the tickets? Who will do the advertising? Who will do the catering? And that's how you get the group to make decisions. And then there's always going to be those in the group that did not want that particular fundraiser. They wanted something else. But we need to, as a last step, get those that are not in agreement to experiment with the decision for a period. You know, it's always been best to win people over. Because the minute you win someone over, they participate, they give their consensus, and it's just easier having everyone on board. You agree, Ross?
It does make it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Because otherwise, those people that's going to say, no, we didn't vote for the idea, they could make waves along the line.
And then we won't have a successful team because the goalposts aren't the same.
Exactly.
Okay. Right.
There we go, Ross. This one is for you.
All right. Now, I did mention earlier that management team role and Mergerson McCain are similar in the sense they have very similar names. Now, again, someone sat down, they developed this theory by sitting in a group. What are the different roles? So again, I'm going to say, learn the different names. Let's try and use your friends to now link them, how they're different, how they're the same, but they are different. They're going to ask you sometimes to compare the two. Okay, so we're going to go straight on. Our Mergerson McCain, we have our reporter, advisor. They're all about gathering information and making it understandable. Okay, some people like the facts. That's what this person does, just gives me facts, just so I understand it. We have the creator, innovator, like our plant, thinks creatively. Someone doesn't have to always be social, but they're very creative. You have one of those friends that were usually very good at art. We explorer, promoter. Again, the social component, the social part of our team, connects with people in and outside of the team. Okay, so that social person is always on Facebook, Twitter, anything. They're the one who are people's people. You need them. Okay, if you're not a people's person, make sure you're friends with someone that is, especially if you want to make your company succeed. You need those types of personalities. Okay, and we move on. We have our assessor developer, all about evaluating different options that we might have in a company. You know, what can we do here? What can we do there? They're someone who's not about routine. They're someone about what might be the best option going forward. Okay, and then we have the other 4 remaining roles in our Mergerson McCain. The next one is the organizer turns an idea into action. Now, if you recall, Bourbon had the same sort of thing. There has to be an action. There has to be paper into product. Someone who's actually going to do the job. That's your organizer. Then we have our producer, likes completing things on time. Sounds very similar to our finisher, but a different name. And then we have our controller, inspector, likes working with detailed information. Everyone has that friend who's very all about the grammar, all about the spelling. That's the person you need in the team for the small details. Upholder, maintainer, looks after the social elements of the team. It's like a team worker. Actually cares, is it a positive atmosphere? Is everyone okay? When you start going to a company, you need people like that. People work long hours. There has to be someone in the team that actually thinks about the people in the team. Then they can actually work harder and work longer. So as management, when you're looking at these theories, you're thinking, hey, I need someone who's going to help with my team. How am I going to make them better? That can either fall on your shoulders or on one of your team members' shoulders. Okay, so like I said, very similar but different. You need to compare the two. You need to make sure you understand each role, how they work in a team, and be able to compare them, how they're different, how they're similar. And it's always nice for an essay. But I'm hoping Ferguson, McCain, and management team role don't come up together. They're very similar and it can get very confusing. So learn, learn, learn. Right, so we're going to move on. I'm going to carry on with conflict. Now, as you know, we like giving definitions. The definition we have here, a state of disagreement or disharmony between persons or ideas. And as I mentioned earlier, conflict is not always a bad thing. It's a good thing. Often very good ideas can come out of conflict if managed correctly. Okay, now conflict, we are not referring to physical conflict. We're not talking about fighting. We're talking about people having their idea and they're defending their idea. Okay, so how do we actually maintain that? And some sort of causes of conflict. Personal differences. Some people don't like each other, and just based on that fact alone will actually cause conflict. Poor communication. If you actually think in your little friend circle, how many times have you had a fight where it was just because you didn't say something, a little piece of information? Poor communication often leads to fights. That's why you need to have communication skills and develop them. Competition. Okay, this is natural. You're going to always have competition between groups, and conflict does arise from that. Ignoring rules and procedures. All of you play sports or in class. As soon as rules aren't followed, as soon as procedures aren't followed, you feel that you're being, relegated. You feel like you're being hard done by. Of course you're going to be upset. That leads to conflict. Workload, stress, and poor organization. All are sources of conflict. So now you as management, if you identify these areas of conflict, you need to address them. You need to somehow fix them so that your team can climb through that storming stage and go straight to norming and performing. You see, so those are areas you as management, you as a business, try and eliminate and then move on to performing, selling your products or doing whatever you need to do to make profit at the end of the day. Okay, so that's what we mean by conflict. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through some steps that can help you in resolving conflict. Now, this might sound simple, but each one has their place and each one has a reason. Now, I know it sounds very sort of out of place, but you need somewhere to actually talk. You need a time, you need a place. Now, a lot of you are like, oh, why can't we just have the argument right there and then? That depends on the situation. If the meeting is about addressing the argument, great. Let's do it. But if that meeting's about sales figures and reporting, it's not the right time. You need a time, you need a place, a meeting room, somewhere safe. People need a place where they feel safe to express their views. And views are different. It's okay. Okay, we're not going to have group consensus immediately. We need to develop that. That's something that develops. It doesn't just happen. People are different. You sit in class, everyone's different. That's okay. We need to understand that. After we now accept that people have different views, what was the real problem? How do we define that problem? Is it clear? Does everyone understand we're on the same problem? Once we've identified, for instance, the problem is that we at the back of the class can't hear you, so That's a problem that's been clearly defined. Okay, so but that's now something important we need to do. Once we've got that, everyone expresses their views, how do they feel about it, and that helps the brainstorming session. That helps, how can we come together with ideas, how can we come together as a team. Now you guys are thinking a class is just as much as a team as a sports team. If your class is weak, generally the individuals suffer. But if your class is strong, all the individuals come together, guess what? You help each other. So brainstorming comes up, then we evaluate the different alternatives. How can we solve the problem? We could have a speaker, we could do a number of different things, sit differently so that everyone can listen. And then the solution, whatever it is, in a group is selected and implemented. Big word, I know. All it is, what is the solution? How do we make it happen? Again, action. Theory, action. Once the action's happened, the manager or teacher or someone who's monitoring, just like our roles have it, evaluate and say, is it working? If it's not working, let's go back to brainstorming. Let's try this again. It's not working. Okay, so those are steps. Each one followed so that we can actually work to something good. But learners, you're not going to get away from conflict. As you get older, everyone now has their point of view. You need to listen, accept, and then work forward. But remember, you also got a point of view. You need to express yourself as well, even if you're introverted. Okay, so those are steps that we require you to know. All right, so Amanda, if you don't mind taking us through just some strategies that you can use when dealing with difficult people.
Okay, yeah, sure, Ross. But before we do this, there's quite a number of questions that came up grade 12s. Allow me to finish this slide first on strategies of dealing with difficult people, and then we will answer your questions, okay? Yes. So we have, I don't actually like the term that says strategies of dealing with difficult people. I think it's more, should be strategies of dealing with different personalities. Yes, we've been doing diversity for a long time in the Business Studies syllabus. We are different. We come from a diverse nature. We are different cultures, different races, different genders, different perspectives. So the first one is, do not judge the employee. I think what we need to say here is, grade 12s, we need to be more tolerant of each other's differences. I think sometimes we are so critical and we are so judgmental to someone that just does things differently. I always like to say to my class, remember, 6 plus 3 equals 9. But so does 5 plus 4. And so does 7 plus 2. Just because we work it out in a different method does not make it necessarily wrong. So we need to be tolerant so that we do not judge each other. Number 2, get perspective from others who have experienced the same kind of situation. Sometimes we just feel that we are so alone when we are dealing with something, but someone else have a different company, a different function in the business. Talk and share and get the perspective from others who have experienced and dealt with this before. Number 3, have regular meetings with our supervisors, because in the regular meetings we can air what is happening. Do not wait for a big problem to go totally out of control, because often it's those small little disagreements, those small little foxes that makes everything so out of hand. So as the small little things that you see that irritates you, mention this at your regular meetings so that we can nip it in the bud. Identify the type of personality. We spoke about that earlier in the JUNGIAN theory or the JUNGIAN theory. Meet privately with difficult employees and give them an opportunity to explain their behavior. Sometimes we can be in a team setup and we think, that there's that person that always asks those most difficult questions. They seem that they're there just they seem so conflicting or so argumentative. Maybe they are just more critical. It doesn't mean they don't agree with you. All that they're doing is saying, what if this happened?
That's where expressing the different views comes important. Some people might appear aggressive, but often they just want a clearer answer. They're not understanding. And
No, absolutely. But I've often been with team members or team leaders. They do not want you to have a different opinion from what they're saying. And often that is where the conflict comes in.
Very true.
Absolutely. A deadline should be set for improving bad, difficult behavior. And guidelines for improvement should be given. At this stage, I would like to just mention a few of the questions that has come in. There's one from Natalie that says, great lesson. I'm really learning a lot. Thank you, Natalie. There's a question here that says, what is the difference between an extrovert and an introvert from Zenuke? Zenuke, just to answer that, an introvert is someone that is quiet, withdraw, more the thinking person that will just tend to keep quiet in a group situation. The extrovert is the one that's talking all the time, the one that's outgoing, the one that's attracting all the attention to him or her. That is your extrovert.
It's also where they get their sources of energy. Often, I think in JUNGIAN they mention it. Introvert, their energy is from inside. They like thinking by themselves, they like to be by themselves. That's where they gain energy, where your extrovert gains energy from a group. That's why they're always the social people. The group helps them energize.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's carry on. Your grievance procedure.
Okay, now learners, this one has come up a lot of times. I'm pretty sure that maybe some of the words will be very difficult to see on the screen, but if you've got the printout in front of you, please follow. Okay, this has come up in a few questions. Me and Amanda were talking about it beforehand. It normally comes up in a section B, so you need to be prepared for it. And I've done 2 slides about this. So we're going to first do the first one, which is more detail, and then just a quick overview how it escalates. Okay, so step 1, when you're dealing with a problem. Now, grievance is a problem. This can happen in the workplace, maybe between employee and employer, team member, team leader, any one of those situations. It's a very formal thing. It's like an first it starts off unwritten and becomes very formal as we go on. So step 1 is when you have a problem, don't keep quiet. You need to actually go say, look, we have a problem. It's all about that clear communication that we mentioned earlier. So step 1 in any grievance procedure, go talk to your team leader. Hi, I'm having a problem with this. Okay, so that's step 1. So I just want to go back to the slide. So step 1, bring it to the attention of the supervisor on the same working day. Okay, don't let it fester, don't let it draw out, same working day. Step 2, if the supervisor and yourself or team leader or worker haven't come to an agreement, then it gets moved up a level. Now it becomes a little bit more serious. This is where a formal complaint in writing, if you're not happy. This is formal complaint done with human resources. Document is filled out. All the details are filled in by the team leader, yourself, so that it becomes now an official thing. It's no longer a verbal thing. If it's a small matter, verbal conversation, hey, look, don't be late, it's fine, or please don't talk to your colleagues like that. That's the sort of verbal conversation that will happen. The formal is now for the more serious team conflicts that will happen, maybe even swearing at someone, or even the physical altercations that might happen in the workplace. Okay, so it's a very formal. So this is where it starts getting serious. The relevant manager will arrange, like I mentioned earlier, there needs to be a meeting, a time and a place within 1 working day of the incident happening. The manager ensures that the minutes are kept. There has to be a record. It's official now. Okay, learners, this is where it is official. Things must be recorded. There must be evidence for when, as you can see in step 9, we go to the CCMA. If there's still no harmony, there's still no resolution, there's still no solution, at step 5, we move it up. This is where the next level of management is moved in. This is where we involve human resources manager, someone above your manager. Okay, so next level is involved. Because, I mean, to be honest, you might have a situation where you and your manager don't see eye to eye, which is okay, but you can't be treated any differently because of it. So maybe someone else's view will be a bit different, less biased maybe. Okay, so that's when next management comes on. After that, the manager will advise management where we're going to sit down again, time, place. Let's all get together, let's talk. And then a step I think it's step 8 there. Decision will be recorded. Again, the records must be kept. There must be formal meetings done, and that's put into the grievance form. Our last step is a twofold step. Okay, if there's still no solution, you feel like you were right and management feels like they were right, and both of you are sitting in the situation where you feel like you were right, you can always go to the CCMA. Now, like I mentioned, sometimes management have a viewpoint and you have a viewpoint, which is allowed, and maybe you need someone who's outside of the company just to come in and say, look, maybe you both are being out of line, which can happen. You know, sometimes you're defending your viewpoint, you can get a bit too aggressive. So the CCMA is that external sort of organization, the Council, Conciliation, Mediation, Arbitration. I hope you know the difference between the three. They will sit and sort of help you work out what the next step is. What is the solution? Okay, if you're still not happy, the company or you still not happy, then you go into the appeal process. The appeal is just like, look, can we have a look at it again? Okay, so as you can see, grievance procedure has lots of steps. They each follow in turn, one after the other, not out of order. They must follow one after another, and then you always have another option. Once your appeal's done, then sorry, that's the final decision. Okay, so I've done it in a more simpler slide just to show you the escalation. Escalation just is how serious it's starting to get. We go from a nice little verbal, nothing serious chat. We start getting written. We have a formal meeting. This is where things are very serious, by the way. Then once we get higher management involved, this is now, because this is people's time, this is people's space, gets very serious. And once we get the CCMA involved, even more serious. Okay, so all the way it just escalates, escalates, escalates. So you as a worker must at the same time feel that your issue is worth this escalation. Okay, and if you feel it's worth it, of course, in South Africa we have these structures to allow you to now express your views, so use them. Okay, so all of you should know who the CCMA is from our labor relations, from legislation last time. Okay, so complex, learn it. It can be as a long question, and I've just done it simply here for you. Okay, Amanda. Okay, so now just to wrap up with some of the content, I think just to review, we went through Bilbin. Remember, our thinkers, our action, our people. We have Jurgen, and we've received quite a few questions about introvert, extrovert. What type of person are you inside of those teams? We have our different management team role, Mergus and McCain, and group consensus. Again, I'm just going to ask you learners, please be very careful between management team roles and Mergus and McCain. There's a lot of very similar words, similar roles, but they are different. So you're going to have to learn them very carefully. Conflict, just strategies, questions like how would you deal with a team that maybe has language barriers, using different strategies, steps in conflict resolution we've done, and please, stages in team development, forming, norming, performing, all the rest, and our grievance procedure, which is very important. Section B, all the way here. You know it. It's nice, easy marks when it gets asked. And you see, please explain grievance procedure, you're good to go. Right. So I hope that's helped. We did include a few questions.
Oh, well, Ross, we won't be able to answer the questions today, but the learners will be able to get the DVDs and from the schools. Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. There's one announcement from the University of Stellenbosch. We have it now, the English session from 3 to 4 for business studies. Between 4 and 5, we have in the Afrikaans Business Studies Telematics Session. But after 5, the University of Stellenbosch is going to have they're going to flight a session to tell you how do you go about applying to study at the university. They're also going to have a brief run through the different faculties and the different courses that they offer here at the university. And let me tell you, Stellenbosch University, I just think, I've always said it's just the ideal institution to come and study because this is just such an academic town. you know, there's such a lot of support, the environment is safe, and I'm just putting in a good word for Stellenbosch University over there. But thank you for joining us today. Grade 12s, remember now we're getting ready for your mid-year exams. You need to be crusaders, as one of the roles we spoke about today. You should be focusing on your studies now. You've had your autumn holidays. You had the Easter break. So guys, some of us are starting with exams as early as in May month. So it gives us in 2 weeks' time, the exams could be on you. So you should be having a studying timetable, and you should be focusing and working. And very, very important, grade 12s, you should be busy with your media research at the moment. You should be busy working on your presentation. Your article should be collected at the stage, right, Ross?
Yes, you should be very much on top of it. Okay, so learners, I'm going to say thank you very much. We don't have time for any extra questions, do we, Amanda?
Let's see, because we probably have about a minute that is left. Where are we? It was just the main questions that we identified. Basically, as a consolidation activity, this question is often asked in section B, where they would give you a case study. And then the most common questions that would come with the case study is, what caused the conflict? And that you'll obviously get by reading the case study. And then the second popular question that you will get is, what are the other causes of conflict in the workplace? And the steps in conflict. But that is really, really all the time that we have for today.
Okay.
As I said, thank you for joining us, grade 12s. Make the most of this quarter, accumulate your marks, work hard. We want to see you do exceptionally well at the end of the year.
Very much so. So just work hard and keep focusing.